Hello BookTube, it's Ben here from the History Fella channel. Today, as it's Tuesday, I thought I'd fit in with the norm and do a tag for Tuesday. I found this tag on the History Shelf channel over at Pegs, and it's called the History Trail Tag. So let's get going. Question 1. First steps. What book, movie, person, place introduced you to history? Apart from learning about the American West in high school, I probably got into history a couple of years before that, and that would have been from my granddad, who was into genealogy and the history of people's surnames. And up in his spare room, he used to draw all these pictures and paint and stuff, but he was also into his calligraphy writing. And what he used to do was he'd find out all about the histories of people's surname, and then do like a really smart poster or design full of all this calligraphy writing, which told you all about the history behind each other's surnames. And actually managed to turn it into a business, and got together with some mates, and they ended up printing all my granddad's original work in poster form, and each poster would represent somebody else's surname, and they turned that into a business, and it was quite popular. So every time we went to go and visit Nana and Grandad when I was a kid, it always used to fascinate me going to see his study room and looking at all the artwork, all the paints, watching him do his writing. That really fascinated me, and I suppose that's what got me into history right at the beginning. Number 2, Well-Trodden Path. What is your favourite historical recommendation? Book, place or movie? I'm going to go for place for that. I'm going to suggest, if you ever get over to London, or if anyone's ever visited London from the UK, is to go and see the Tower of London. It's a good 500 years worth of history. It's all fascinating stuff, and I just think there's actually London's like one of my side interests, in that I love learning about the history of London and all the different things that went on, and all the little social rules and the histories behind all the dockyards and the really poor places of London town and that sort of thing. So I would say, the Tower of London I find quite intriguing and fascinating. Number 3, good boots. What is your favourite historical fashion era? I'm going to go for the 1920s and 30s, mainly because there was a time when men used to wear all these nice pinstripe suits and look quite dapper, and the ladies all looked rather fine in their dresses and outfits, and that's kind of always appealed to me, the smartness and that sort of thing. So sort of the Edwardian era is something I quite like. And also I've always probably thought since a kid, the American West era, seen the lawmen or the cowboys swaggering down the street in cowboy boots and holsters on their hips and big hats, that sort of thing. So they're the two eras I probably quite fancy. Number 4, close to home. What is a historical read set in your home country? Well, Wales has quite a big history, but excuse me for coughing. But I'm going to go for a bit of history from my own town here in Fishguard, and that would be the last invasion, which if you Google it, is quite an interesting little history. But it's basically a couple of French ships came across. They were planned to go to Dublin, but they thought they'd pass Wales and stop off here and try and invade Wales, and then they ended up getting scared off, and it turns out that they were scared off by a group of Welsh women who they mistook for red-coated British soldiers. So that's an interesting little read. Some find it a little bit far-fetched, but it's a nice little read, considering it concerns my little town. Number 5, the trail not taken. What historical eras do you avoid? As I'm into history, I don't really avoid any particular era. I have noticed lately that I'm really getting into the 1970s for some reason, especially in British history, looking at the political situation and the social situation in the 1970s, how things got so bad and were going wrong politically. So I'm really enjoying that. Ones that I avoid. I've always fancied getting into Greek history and the myths, and but I always find all the names and the stories, all that kind of get jumbled up, and I find that hard to get into for some reason, although I'd like to. Probably the one I always avoid though is the Egyptian, when they were building all the pyramids and all the things that revolved around Egypt. I tend to avoid that, a bit like the plague. Anyway, next question. Number 6, what trail map? What historical reads are on your TBR list? If I have a look at my TBR list, I've got about 15 books to read. They range from the Elizabethan conquest of Ireland, World War II, George III, Stalin, spying, World War I, and railways in Britain. So it's quite a wide selection, and to be honest, I'm quite looking forward to reading them. It's just trying to get around to read them all and doing stuff with them. But yeah, that's my basic TBR list at the moment. Number 7, pioneers. What historical person inspires you? It's probably leaders. I'm always fascinated with Abraham Lincoln, JFK and Winston Churchill, mainly because they all seem very principled men, and they're always interesting. Field Marshal Montgomery, always liked him, and I suppose FDR as well. So it does tend to be people in positions of leadership or power, but that always interests me in seeing what makes them tick, what their principles are, what they've achieved, what you think they might achieve in the future. So yeah, that would answer that question. And then tag your fellow history nerds. I shall put a list below this video of all the history nerds that I like to follow. I shall put a tag down below as well for Peg's History Bookshelf channel. Please go along and visit any of the ones I've listed or recommended. And if you've got any other questions that you might like to ask me about history, then please feel free to drop them below in the comments section. If you wouldn't mind, could you give us a thumbs up for this video, and if you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe. But other than that, I shall see you in the next video, and thank you very much for watching.